All right. Some of our students are actually at the school, so you will see multiple people in one camera, and the rest of us are doing online class for today. We're doing a kind of back and forth with the online and the face-to-face here in Jamaica. But we're very excited to just talk to you, read the poems. I don't have a running order of how today's session would go, other than we've chose 3 poems. We'd love to have well, I guess the kids have some questions soon, but we chose 3 poems. So what we could do is I could read a poem, or we could get somebody to read the poem.
Or I could read them.
Or you could read them. We could discuss maybe your inspiration behind the poems, hidden meanings, maybe misconceptions, things like that. And we could go through those poems.
Okay. So which poem you want me to start with?
Well, I would just go in order of what is in the book in front of me. And the first one would be for Don Drummond.
Okay. Everybody knows who Don Drummond was, right?
Right. We did background.
His story.
Yeah, man, we did background on him. We did a background on him.
For Don Drummond. Them same born with a call, a not quite opaque white veil through which he visioned only he knew. At birth, them supposed to bury it under some special tree. If we had known, we could have told them it was to be the angel trombone tree. Upton, 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 and far, far east past Warwick, down by Bournemouth by the sea, the angel trombone bell mouth sighs, and notes like petals rise, covering all away. Not enough notes to blow back the call that descend regularly and cover this world vision, hiding him from we. Find a woman with hair like rivers, a waist unhinged and free, emptied some of the sorrow from the horn's cup into the well below her belly. She promised to take the call from his eyes, to remove the cold matter that clouded his eyes, and stand between him and the trombone tree duppy. The promise dead like history, dead like she, for when the call come again and covered his eyes, this time the blade rise like notes in a scandal on a street corner, far, far east past Warwick. From a bridge view, the crowd holds notes. One gone, done gone. Lay me down, for the band must rest. Yes, music is my occupation. I tired to hold this note, you hold this memory. For JFK, for me. Met the slide catches right here, so I stop. And Bellevue is the view I view. And sometimes I think the whole world mad too. Behold the house of his feet, the brown booger, tongue ajar, a door that blow and open and close no more. Fold the dark suit pressed on the newspaper, murder scream the morning paper. Bring the felt hat where the call would hide, to slip down sly and cover his eyes. And this time do the burial right for we, buried it down under the angel trombone tree. Okay, that's the poem. I wrote that poem many, many, many years ago. And yeah, and if you have any questions.
Well, guys, do you have any questions off the bat? Or while we were studying it, you guys had a lot of questions, you know. Don't be nervous now.
Yes, please. I'm not even in the room, so you don't have to worry about me. No questions?
All right, well, let me start with a question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go you first, sir, you first.
No, Chadia, go ahead, Chadia.
No, sir, you first.
You're so polite. You're polite like that all the time. I don't believe it.
I think, I know, and Chadia isn't, you know, Chadia is usually the one jumping and throwing the questions out there. I don't know why she's being shy.
I just ask, I'll try to answer any question you have.
All right, let me just throw one out there, which is, while doing the research on the background behind Don Drummond, we see a lot of things that were a little bit controversial about it, you know, but there's a tone where we can see that you are tapping into what's really happening mentally for Don Drummond. What was it like to write about all that controversy that swirled around what happened with him, while also speaking about his, you know, mental state?
It was very painful. I think I keep saying that we have to look at this like a story like that on an epic scale. It's more like if you were looking at one of Shakespeare's plays, like say Othello, where Othello stabs Desdemona out of jealousy.
Right.
So we can't just deal with it in a sort of very small, very local way. These were people with big talent. I mean, like enormously talented people. But they lived at a time in Jamaica when the society didn't have a place for artists like that, like now. And like certainly treatment for people with mental illness was very, very, very primitive. You know,
Right.
if the both of them were alive now, the story might have ended differently because there would have been room for Margarita to be an artist. She could have danced with the NDTC or something like that. Instead, she was what they call a rumba dancer. Except she
Right.
wasn't that. If people knew, I don't want to go off on a tangent here. What I'm saying is that these people were before their time. We have to view them sympathetically as people, artists in a way sacrifice for us so that we can be artists and musicians and be proud of that nowadays. Okay? Does that make any sense to you? What I'm saying?
100%. Yes, man, definitely. Because I
So
mean,
that's how I approached it,
Nice. Chadia, your question now, and then Daryl.
Oh, well, sir, you basically asked what I wanted to ask in a different way, but I have another question, which is whenever we're talking about famous people or celebrities or really well-known people, I always like feel this disconnect with them. Like maybe it's because I don't know them personally, but I'm seeing into their lives. So how how was it? How was it that you connected with that story and wrote like such an impactful poem? Because I learned so much.
Thank you. Well, that's my job, I'm a poet. That's my gift from God. That's how I regard it. When I was a very little girl, I always loved poetry, but I remember just the first poem I ever really was conscious of writing. I was maybe about 8 or 9, and I saw the rain falling, and I was just so taken with how everything just looked renewed and refreshed after the rain. And I just felt this poem forming in my mind. And I think from that time, that's what I've been very blessed by, knowing that that is what I was given to do. So, like with any job, you get some kind of attendant gifts that go along with it. You understand? I think one of the other gifts is I think I have some. I don't want to big up myself, but I think I can be very empathetic. I identify with other people very easily, and is what the poet John Keats called having a sympathetic imagination. You can just see another person or a situation, and you can just imagine yourself into it and feel how they would feel. And it can be very painful sometimes, because sometimes you can feel other people's pain. So I don't have that on us, but a sympathetic imagination, and you have to have a lot of empathy to do this kind of thing,
Go ahead, Daryl.
Pardon me. Oh, Daryl. Okay.
Yeah, Daryl had a question. No? Go ahead, Daryl.
It was answered. It was answered.
Hi,
Alright.
Daryl.
You have one more, Chadia?
Yes. So, what was it? Oh. Okay, so when we were watching the YouTube clips of you and the interviews, I really admired how like you read your poem and like you expressed it in such a way that you could just feel the emotions oozing out of your voice. And whenever I read my own writing, I always cringe or I laugh. So how do you do that?
Well, I don't know. I think I never always read like that, okay? When I just started reading my poems publicly, I was very nervous and I really didn't like to do it. But at some point, I reconciled myself to the fact that this is, as I keep saying, this is my job. This is what I do. And if I was going to do it, I had to do it properly and do it well. And so I think I began to consciously pay attention to how I was reading and allow sometimes the poem read you as much as you read yourself, because you know you feel like reading that poem. I just started to feel sad again. I started to feel sympathy for the two, for both Don Drummond and Margarita, and maybe that comes across in my voice. I don't know.
All
I
right,
don't know
John,
if
we
that's
have
a
a
good
question.
answer, but
Good afternoon. Excuse me being nervous. I'm never normally nervous, but I'm kind of fangirling right now. I don't know if sir can notice it, but I'm a bit excited for this. But yeah, so good afternoon.
good
I
afternoon.
wanted to know, I wanted to know, before this poem, I had no clue who Don Drummond was, meaning it wasn't a Bob Marley, he wasn't somebody known to me. And so I wanted to know, in the time that you wrote this, why did you feel the need to write this? Meaning, were you a relative of him? Did you know him, or was it just a story that popped up and you're like, okay, this is intriguing me, so let me write on this?
I think Jamaica used to be much different now. You know what? You grew up in the age of internet and all this stuff, and there's so much information out there. But like when I was growing up a long, 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 long time ago, you know, there was just like maybe the morning paper and the evening, this the Gleaner and the Star. We never even had the Observer, those things. And then you had two radio stations. So I think most people heard the same news at the same time. And so there were issues that affected everybody. It wasn't like most of the people didn't hear, everybody heard because that's what you were listening to. But most importantly, I think I was also from very young, I was conscious of the fact that there were just some things. I don't know. The best way for me to tell you that is that I have no control over what inspires me. But sometimes I just get I'm just like that. Something just kind of takes over my imagination, and I just feel no matter what I do, I try to forget about it, and it doesn't go away. Then I start to dream about it. And I also am a painter. I trained as an artist. I do all the covers of my books. And what would happen is sometimes I would paint something and then I would think I've gotten rid of that, but it would just keep coming back, keep coming back. So then I would have to write about it. So that particular poem, it was they call it zeitgeist. It was just in the air. And but more than that, it's just such a tragic story. It moved my heart. The simplest way to say it is that it just made me cry. I remember the morning I went back to bed and I stayed in bed for a lot of, you couldn't just stay in bed those days, but I stayed in bed for a long time. I was so upset by it. It really got to me, you know. And I don't know if I answered your question, but that's the best I can do.
You did. Thank you very much.
A question that I have inside the poem itself. What struck out to me was your use of the angel trombone tree and the repetition of that. It's there in the second and the third stanza, and again right in the last line, right? Yes. So talk to us a little bit about the connection with the angel trombone tree, the instrument he played, and the significance you feel that had in putting that symbolism in the poem.
Well, I mean, this is a poet's interpretation of what happened, right? So, I mean, I had to put my imagination to work to try and understand something about this man's life and what happened. And, you know, so I went to Jamaican folklore, Jamaican and African folklore, they said when children are born, if they're born, you know what a caul is? Part of the amniotic sac.
Right.
Some babies, their faces are covered with this piece. And
some of us didn't know before, and we did a little research.
I don't have to go into that. But it came into my mind then that maybe what happened is that his caul wasn't properly buried, which is why he was, afflicted all his life by this illness, by mental illness. And so I came up with that, and then I thought maybe the appropriate tree that, for the tree that is most appropriate to his story would be the angel trombone tree. Except there's no angel trombone tree, there's an angel trumpet tree.
Mm.
And if you look in Jamaica, I don't know if you pay a lot of attention to the natural world, but I do. I love studying the names of trees and plants and things. and there's an angel trumpet tree. And the first version of this poem, I think in Cameron season, says angel trumpet.
Okay.
And then Sonny Bradshaw was a big band leader at the time. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he called me and he said, Lorna, it can't be a trumpet. He played the trombone. So I changed it to angel trombone. So I don't think that's actually an angel trumpet trombone tree, but for the sake of accuracy, I went with angel trombone instead of angel trumpet. And
Nice.
there was more to that question, but I don't remember.
Well, I was asking about the significance of not just the repetition, but tying it in with him as an instrument player, you know? How
I will say when I was writing that poem, I felt as if I was writing to music. So it is, the repetition will be like the refrain in a song. And also, I don't know if you tell the students that a lot of I reference quite a few of his song titles in the poem. You know that?
I think we had found one or two in there.
Okay, music occupation. He has a song called Occupation.
Okay.
He has one called let me just go quick. He has one called JFK.
Okay.
Yeah. Bridgeview. I think he has one called Bridgeview. One called Far East.
Okay, and that's early in the poem.
Yeah, and I think he has one called, I'm not sure if we have something called Warika, but don't quote me on that one.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, but Bellevue is if you have your
all right, and I'll look up
but
these songs.
but a number of his songs. I reference a number of the song titles in the poem.
Nice. So that's also something that we now learn about the poem itself that we can add to our studies.
I try to build in, some of his song titles into it. And the answer to your question is I'm using that line as a refrain in the way of music. If you were writing a song, you would use it as a refrain.
Line is used like a refrain. I like that. All right. Anybody else have any questions on Don Drummond before we jump to the next poem?
I have a question. So before I start my question, I'd just like to say I like that you said that you sympathize with Dawn, because oftentimes persons only sympathize with Anita. And I remember when we were doing it, I said poor Dawn, and I was like, but he's the one who did it, but I understand the whole situation around it. But my question is, so Professor Mervyn Murray spoke on the spiritual reach of your poems, and you spoke in your interview about you wrote because you had to write. So I was wondering if the spiritual reach came out because of a lack of it in the environment around you, or because this is who you are and you grew up around that spirituality.
That's a very nice question. Thank you. Okay, I suspect I was born like this because I'm being very confessional this morning. I don't know why I'm talking to you cheap people. I don't usually say things like this, but I think from the time I was very small, I kind of had this great sense that I'd come to search for something and I didn't know what it was, and it wasn't. And I knew in my heart I would have to struggle to find it, and it was, but I didn't know what it was, But no, my mother's an Anglican, so we went to Anglican church, and the Anglican. One of the things about Anglicans is that they have great hymns. A lot of those hymns are written by some of the greatest poets in the English language, And I love those poems for that reason. And I went to St. Hugh's, and I don't know what happens now at St. Hugh's, but every morning we had assembly, and we'd sing hymns, and so I think the language of hymns is very much embedded it's kind of hardwired into me. So, and like I said, I always knew I was a searcher and I was seeking something, but I think the poetry is very close to prayer sometimes for me, and sometimes when I read a really good poem, it has a similar effect that a good prayer has on you. It kind of lifts you up. Poetry the heart of every good poem has some kind of opposition at the heart of it. There's always something going up against something else. As do hymns, I bring my weary soul to thee, I need to be refreshed, or, that kind of thing. So what I'm saying is that I think I'm coming from a foundation of hymnology, and that impacts my work. And then my own personal searchings and struggles and, we have been in the world. I think all of that informs my work. Does that answer your question? And about people didn't always sympathize with Margarita, They used to say the worst things about this poor woman. Is no one. I'm telling you, it was a terrible thing about Jamaica. It was unbelievable. It was as if they were blaming her for her own death.
That's interesting, because I feel like in the culture nowadays, it has changed. It's interesting that
trust me, this is very recent, and you have to credit people like Herbie Miller, Herbie Miller, who is the head of the Jamaica Music Museum. He's one of the early people, because he knew her, who was saying, this is misogyny, and you have to look at the life of the woman and see that she was an artist. She was, and well, anyway, I'm glad to hear that the situation is now reversed somewhat, because when I was growing up, it was not so. Okay.
Yeah, and it's interesting you spoke about how poetry is almost like prayer. That reminds me of a friend that I have. She grew up Christian, but she lives in America, and where her daughter goes to school, there's many denominations, many religions around. So she actually built what she called a Thanksgiving poem that she and her daughter recites that isn't religion specific. Yes, so so before she eats, before they go to bed, they recite this Thanksgiving poem, and I found it very interesting that it's an inclusive way, and you saying that poetry is like prayer reminded me of that, so I just wanted to bring that up.
That's true. And very quickly, at St. Hugh's in sixth form, we had a course called comparative religion, and this was a long time ago. St. Hugh's was we were way ahead of our time in that. And that's where I learned about all the different religions of the world at St. Hugh's. In sixth form, we were taught by a lady called Dr. Rottie Mitchell, and she taught us comparative literature comparative religion, about all the religions of the world. Yeah.
Nice. I think this is a good transition into the next poem, right? We had Nanny would be the next one.
Okay. No, I used to be able to sit that down. Does anybody want to read it? You read it. How about that?
That's fine.
Okay, go ahead then.
All right. Nanny. My womb was sealed with molten wax of killer bees, for nothing should enter, nothing should leave. The state of perpetual siege, the condition of the warrior. From then my whole body would quicken at the birth of every one of my people's children. I was schooled in the green giving ways of the roots and vines, made accomplice to the healing acts of cheney root, fever grass, and vervain. My breasts flattened, settled unmoving against my chest. My movements ran equal to the rhythms of the forest. I could sense and sift the footfall of men from the animals and smell danger, death's odor in the wind's shift. When my eyes rendered light from the dark, my battle song opened into a solitaire's moan. I became most knowing and forever alone. And when my training was over, they circled my waist with pumpkin seeds and dried okra, a traveler's jigida, and sold me to the traders, all my weapons within me. I was sent, tell that to history. When your sorrows obscures the skies, other women like me will rise.
Good job.
Oh, respect.
Nice reading.
I want to jump ahead of the
Simon, before you go, I think we should tell Miss Goodison, that you are a poet, right?
I am a poet. Yes, yes. I am.
And that some of your poems are actually in our first and second form poetry book that we compiled as a school community. So he has passion about and can do poems.
Yes.
And also,
the British
Lorna,
said he has form.
Yes.
He has form. All right.
a question I will ask. I think were you published in the Calabash 100 Poets book by the one that Colin Channel had compiled?
Oh God, maybe, I don't know. I don't
Okay.
listen these
No,
days. Yeah.
It's fine. No, I think because I have a poem that's in that book as well, and I think I'm published alongside you in that book.
Oh, how lovely. I will, I'll see if I find it and look at it.
I might make a run for the copy I have. It's not in this office with me now, but before we sign off, I'll look to double check.
Excellent. Yeah.
But I'm going to jump ahead of the kids and say, I have a question that I definitely want to get off of my chest. My womb was sealed with molten wax of killer bees, for nothing should enter and nothing should leave. That first stanza, what does it mean? What does the killer bees mean?
Okay, well, Nani was a warrior.
Mhm.
That's the thing about Nani, which is so astonishing. She was a stone warrior. Apparently she was, I don't know if she actually engaged in combat, but she apparently was a strategist. She is the one who did all the military strategy
Right.
for our people. So I'm just saying that that is the first image of her that came to mind, that she was a woman soldier. She was a military strategist. And the reason I wrote that was really kind of out of some of my poems or my work all have a little element of reality, or sort of kernel of reality, and then I build layers of imagination sometimes around that.
Mhm.
But when Nani was being made into a national hero, I worked at the Jamaica Information Service then, and I was one of the people who worked on that project. And I went up to Nani Town, because in those days, if you were doing something like that, you had to actually go there and see the place and talk to the people. And I made several visits up to Akompang and Nani Town. And everybody spoke about the memories of her, but nobody said she had children.
Mm.
To this day, if you read through history, I don't know if there's anywhere where it says that she had a child. So that first image is about her in warrior mode, you know, and really what I took from that is that she gave up the right to have children so she could be the mother of all Jamaica, because, you know, she's the one who took the fight to the British. And even when her brother was playing ease up, she said no. She was a mighty warrior. Mm-hmm. And the poem really is, again, based on my sort of poet's truth, that I find it difficult. I think about enslaved people, my people, a lot. I was born on the 1st of August, which is Emancipation Day. So I think that part of my mission in life is to think a lot about enslaved people and slavery. And one of the things I always think about is, you mean hundreds and thousands of Africans were just taken out of Africa and none of our people tried to help? And I'm thinking maybe Nani was such a skilled warrior. Where did she get those skills? Could it possibly be that she was deliberately trained in Africa and deliberately sold into slavery so she could come and fight this resistance war? Maybe it's far-fetched, but I'm thinking that, you know?
Okay, because I was doing some research, and the thing with the bees, and there are a lot of people who have writings surrounding Nani not having children and surrounding like methods and African folklore as to what was done to stop her from having children. And I wasn't sure.
I didn't know that. I had no idea. This honest, I didn't know that.
And I mean, that's why I kind of brought up, because some of the writings that we ran into were all definitely like rumors or things brought up, nothing that was confirmed, you know. So I was just wondering the significance of using molten wax and killer bees itself. But
oh, that's just, you know, it's just
a reference to her as a warrior.
Yeah, and it's symbolic, you know, killer bees and wax, and, you know, I make that up, you know, that come to your mind. Mm-hmm. But no basically, though, I had no idea that there was this body of work out there about her not having children. But I never heard anybody the whole time I was there say she had any children.
Interesting. All right, guys, have any questions? You guys wanted this poem badly to, you know, so you should have some questions ready.
Yeah, but I have a question.
Go ahead, Chadia.
Or maybe I don't know if it's a question. So the line that you read, I can't seem to recite it. I'll be able to recite it soon. But the line you read is actually, I think it's my favorite from that poem because it just has me thinking about it literally and figuratively. Because, usually when women train that hard, they're not able to have children because their muscles and their diaphragm are too developed and it's hard.
That's a very interesting. I had no idea, but that could account for it, you know.
So
Sorry, love, please go ahead.
yes, so when we were reading that line, I thought of that too. I also thought of, sometimes they make up ridiculous rumors about things like, oh, her womb have killer bees and they'll sting you if you try anything.
Oh no, listen, this is just a metaphor. You know, the word
Yes.
metaphor means carry over. You take one image and you carry it over into another one. So it's not you can't read those things literally, you know.
But that's what I was saying. Like, I was thinking of in the terms of scientifically, if that was what it meant, or I should say metaphorically.
Just a metaphor. She was to say two things. She was I think people who are certainly in the military, and if you're a military commander, the level that she operated, she would always be on guard. And I wanted to convey that image of somebody who was constantly, engaged. So if she needed to go into battle, she was ready. Okay?
Nice.
But don't read those things too literally. It's poetry after all.
Stona has a question in the chat that I will read for her. It says, would you say this poem bends or bent the idea of traditional gender roles in Nani's era?
Yeah, but remember, she was coming from Africa, and there are some great, if you read it, if you know the history of that continent, there are, female armies. There were, I don't think maybe in this part of the world, but I don't think it bent it all that much, seen as where she was coming from. You know what I'm saying? I think she would have come out of societies where there were very strong women. So a Western reading of the poem might do that, but you can't speak about Nani without remembering that she came out of Africa where they had some really powerful women. A lot of those societies were matriarchal societies where the women ruled, the women were the tax collectors. They were accustomed to holding power. And I have no doubt that they had female, soldiers in some of those societies.
Nice. And yeah, I guess the Maroons were also kind of that warrior type in general anyway.
Well, that was the purpose of them. I mean, a Cimarron is a runaway slave, an enslaved person who ran away, Maroon. And that was, their whole mission was to stay free. And you had to fight for your freedom. So the corollary to that is that you're a fighter. I don't think you had any peaceful Maroon thing. Oh, I'm just going to go up into the hills and chill. No, they would have to fight.
They would have to fight and protect. I mean, there's also a book, some of the George's male students would have studied Young Warriors, which was about that, that early part of that Maroon life. And while teaching Young Warriors, it's interesting teaching that and now teaching your Nani poem. It has a similar feel, but I guess the difference would be one is about young boys and now one is about women. And I guess Stoner's question, even though the Maroons were known as warriors, Stoner's question still does put out the idea that women aren't seen as warriors and
I'm sorry I gave it. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with her. Absolutely, yes. Because, there weren't a lot of there are a number of Maroon male leaders that we know about, Kojo and Taki and people like that. But as far as I know, although I've heard it posited that maybe there was more than one Nani. So I don't know, but.
More than one Nani?
That's like, not, All right, let me not wander too far. I agree with that question, and yes.
No, it's fine. No, it's interesting. I've never heard of the possibility of more than one nanny.
Yeah, but I wouldn't factor that into anything at all. It's just, I think it's just a lot. I had to listen to a lot of things when we were, like I said, we were doing this project to establish her as a national heroine.
Right.
So we had to do a lot of background reading and a lot of talking to people.
All right, that's very interesting. Anybody else have and wait, hold on, before Chadia, anybody else has a question on it? All right, and go ahead, Chadia, remember questions.
Okay, can I just say one thing?
Sure.
The end of that poem says, and when your sorrow obscures the skies, other women like me will rise.
Right.
So maybe I was thinking about that Nanny is a figure who would come again and again when our people really need her.
Right. We spoke about that in class too, where we spoke about the fact that she also sets a precedence. You know, and that precedent that she sent allows other people to rise as, the next nanny itself, or to use her as inspiration to stand up or to break those roles.
Yes.
Yeah, man. Anybody have any questions on the poem itself? Like any lines you want to ask her about or anything like that?
No.
I had one that I wanted to kind of throw out there, which was
2 hands are up, Two hands are up.
Oh, I didn't see this. Okay, go ahead, Jordan, and then
right, and Xavier was
Xavier had his hand up first.
Go ahead, Xavier, then Jordan. Apologies.
Okay.
I was listening and not looking.
That's okay. Greetings, everyone. Greetings, Mrs. Goodison. I would have comfortable Jordan went first, but that's okay. So when I first read your poem, I wondered if the perspective that it was written from was if Nanny actually could not have children. However, as it was just reread and I'm hearing the discussions going on, it's what stands out to me from Nanny is really sacrifice.
Yes.
So
excellent. Yes.
So she would have. So when I read your poem just now, actually, again, and I'm seeing the words that are used and your writing style, actually, it would have, sparked to me that Nanny would have identified what was taking place in her time. And because of that, she would have, wanted better for the children that are there. So when it said, for then my whole body would quicken at the birth of everyone. And when you said my womb was sealed with molten wax, it doesn't sound as if someone else did it. It sounded as if she would have done it herself.
Excellent. Very good.
I just wanted to share that.
That's very good reading. And that is it. Exactly. Good on you. Yes.
Jordan.
Okay, alongside Xavier's sharing, I'm not sure if this would particularly be a question, but when I was smaller, I used to say that, the Nanny was my favorite hero/heroine because, of course, she's the only female.
Yes.
And so that would strike my curiosity for this poem. I was going to say that For Dawn Drummond was my favorite poem from you that we've done so far. But I think this one intrigues me more on how you add, it's as if as the poem progressed, you made Nanny look more equal to man than just a woman. So I wanted to look at how, at the beginning, you're talking about how her womb is sealed with the molten wax, and then it continues to talk about her breast. And obviously, a woman's breast, a woman's breast is another significant symbol to show that she's feminine, she's a woman.
She's a nurturer.
And then it's showing how her breast has now flattened, saying that, it's as if she has a chest. Obviously, women have chests, but she's now more depicted as a man, right? And then it continues to say that, she's still the mother of all these children, right? Even though she can't have these children, even though she cannot give birth, right? And so I wanted to say that it was interesting to me how, as the poem continued, you not only looked at how she cared for these children, but how she became more equal to these men. I didn't even know she was more so the person that would strategically plan the fights and wars.
Strategist, yeah.
But that makes more sense to me now, because even recently I've heard, women plan things better, women are the planners. And it makes sense to me because women, we look at details more so than men. Men, they're not the best planners, but women will, but it's true. It's true, right? I mean, we have a handbag for a purpose, when people say men only have pockets, but women have handbags because we plan for certain things, we have our lipstick, we have our, our little things just in case. Right?
I got you. Yeah.
That has opened, I just want to say that opened my eyes, understanding the poem a little bit more. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Yes, thank you. Thanks.
All right.
Very insightful. Yeah.
There was one thing I wanted to mention before we go to the last poem. In the second stanza, I noticed your use of herbs.
Yeah.
And it also so I wanted to kind of mention it and then jump to the second to last one. So you use the herbs where you said, I was schooled in the green giving ways of the roots and vines, made accomplice to the healing acts of cheney root, fevergrass, and vervain. And then now in that last part, in the second to last stanza, you say, and when my training was over, they circled my waist with pumpkin seeds and dried okra, a traveler's jigida, and sold me to the traders. And from my research, I think I remember that's kind of like the waist beads.
Yes, that's right. Yes, yeah.
And I found an interesting contrast of her not having any kids and having the waist beads, which were like seeds across her stomach.
Yes, yes.
So I don't know if that was if that was symbolic, a contrast on purpose or symbolic on purpose, yes. But I really liked that.
Yes. Thank you. What, sweetie? Sweetie? Yeah. My glasses are very dirty. Yes. Give me 1 minute. Let me just get her.
No problem. That glass is nice.
Yes, I greased up my glasses. Yes, actually, I hadn't thought of that, but that particular image came about also because one of the discussions I had with somebody, that somebody said that she had brought pumpkin and okra to Jamaica. I don't think that's true, but like they kind of credit Nanny with the cultivation of pumpkin and okra.
That's deep. Hello?
They would have had food with them on the journey. Not lots. But I think, remember hearing that pumpkin and okra, came with her. She brought those things.
I will put that with a small question sign.
Yeah.
Brought pumpkin.
Well, their cultivation, the Maroons grew, they had the famous food like planting walks. They used to cultivate a lot of planting. Mm-hmm. And that's because that's one of the things the soldiers used to do when they raid the Maroon encampments. They would burn the food walks. Okay. So pumpkin was definitely, I think pumpkin was definitely a kind of food they cultivated.